Guillermo,
Mark,
what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you as well, my man. Good to see you as well. So, what's on your mind?
Oh, jumping right into it, are we?
Jump right
Not
in, dude.
wasting
You know
any
what? We exchange.
time.
That's it. We'll exchange pleasantries after you and I.
What is on my mind today is the subject of hope. It's something you and I have talked about on the side, what it means from a therapeutic standpoint, what it means from a coaching standpoint. Can you have too much of it? Is having hope a bad thing? What is the origin of hope? And just get right into it. What is hope in the first place? Do you have a definition for what is hope?
I'm sure you do, bro. I'm sure we
Of
can
course I
consult
do.
our friends at Merriam-Webster, but hope is complicated, I think, much more complicated than we often give it credit for, I feel. And in the mental health community, I think we often assume hope is categorically, unequivocally, across the board, always a good thing, a virtue. And I would agree, it's a virtue. And I think maybe the saddest word in all of the English language. I don't know if you share this sentiment, but I think the saddest word in the English language is hopeless, right? The absence of belief that anything could get better, that anything could ever change. And additionally, the absence of the will or the agents or the belief in one's agency to make things better. So when we talk about hope, I think it's different than, say, wishful thinking, right? Where
Hmm.
wishful thinking is just like, well, I hope things get better, right? But I think hope integrates a level of agency that simple optimism and wishful thinking do not. Does that
Geez.
fit? Do you feel?
Well, great job. I mean, that's the thing. That's a hard one to nail down because it's really not a strictly an emotion hope. It's
Hmm.
actually more of like you said the word virtue, which I think is a great way of describing it. I simply just call it a state of mind. And it's a state of mind that kind of is at this weird, unique intersection of a combination of a desire for a
Hmm.
specific outcome or expectation or something that we want to happen, and it kind of is funny because it bridges the gap between simply, wishful thinking for something, but actually adding in this trusting that it can actually happen. So it's like
Sure.
you want something to happen or to be true, and you actually usually have a good reason to think that it might. So it's not just full
Mm,
on, it would be great if that happened. It's like, no, it'd be great if that happened. I think it could actually happen. No, I actually really think it can happen. So
yeah.
there's a confidence component to it. And you're right. I do have to agree with you. Hopelessness could be the worst affliction that I would ever wish on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
comes up.
It does. It certainly does. And I mean, I would suspect it's more commonly of a thing in the therapy world we confront than in the coaching world. I would
Disagree.
imagine. Disagree. Okay, say more.
Disagree. I mean, you know me, majority of my clients are in the corporate sector, they're executives. And the reason why I see hopelessness so much come up is that people are obviously swamped with work, but they don't have a belief that it's going to get any better, and they don't see a pathway. And the word pathway I want to come back to a lot because very interesting enough when I coach people who are mid career, or even people who are on the more senior side, they don't see a path to promotion or a
Hmm.
path to get to the next level, and not being able to see a pathway, not have a plan of attack that they could actually execute on. Guess what
That equates
happens?
to
They lose hope.
hopelessness. Yeah. Well, there's we've talked about the Stephen Covey's book, what is it? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The circles of concern and influence, right? And I do that exercise all the time with clients where, and usually I just utilize the two circles, circle of concern, circle of influence. So for those of us who, or those of you guys who may not have heard our pod on that or have had discussions with either Will or I about that exercise, essentially it's drawing two circles, one big circle and then another smaller circle inside of it. It kind of looks like a donut, right? That outer circle, the bigger circle, we write down things that's our circle of concern. We write down things that we think about, we worry about, but we have no inherent control over, right? And then in that smaller circle, we write down it's our circle of influence, things that we do have at least some influence or control over. So in that outer circle, things like, um, you know, my parents' health or the state of American politics or climate change, whatever it might be, things that, again, I have no control over. And the central question is what percentage of your thought and your attention is being devoted to items in that outer circle versus items in that inner circle. And among people who are really struggling with anxiety or depression or hopelessness, an overwhelming percentage is attributed to those items in the outer circle, the circle of concern. Because if you think about it this way, Will, it's like if I'm focusing on things that I have no power over, the the feeling that is going to sort of flow from that downstream is one of powerlessness, which I think equates to some degree to hopelessness. Because that's the other thing, man, is if we broke down hope, right? And I know there was somebody in positive psychology that you referenced, and I want you to be specific about it in a second. But if we broke down hope into a number of ingredients, I think agency and a sense of empowerment is a fundamental requirement of hope.
I couldn't agree with you more. And yeah, you're referencing, the hope theory from Snyder. And so he
Snyder.
broke it down into 3 different components, which it makes perfect sense. And it's really nice because it's not a very complicated theory for people to realize is that it's a combination of having a goal, right? I'm a coach, so that's very into my world. And really a goal is just something worth pursuing to you. That's just a very simple way of saying what a goal is, right? And I'd already talked about the second component, which is pathways, that there's
Hmm.
actually a route or multiple routes to achieve that goal. And it doesn't matter what this thing is. But last but not least is the concept of agency or personal power or whatever we want to call it, which is just a belief that you can act and take action to walk that walk. Because guess what? Quite literally, if you have 2 broken legs, and there's a path ahead of you, there's no, you should be a little hopeless. There's no way
Sure.
you're going to walk that path, right? You actually don't have the physical strength on that one. And I'm being a little hyperbolic here because I think that there are times when people feel like there's no hope, but they just
Mm.
haven't maybe explored enough options or they haven't believed in themselves enough or the goal that they've chosen isn't really aligned with what they really want.
Well, here's the other side of it to throw a wrinkle in. So there was a philosopher, his name was Friedrich Nietzsche. He was a German, and Austrian. I think he was German. Doesn't matter. In my opinion, he's like the most devastating of all philosophers. And he actually said at one point in one of his books, "My aim is to philosophize with a sledgehammer or with a hammer, right? Just to break things down." Um, he had a quote: "Hope, in reality, is the worst of all evils because it prolongs the suffering of man." And that's again, philosophize with a hammer. We don't like that idea at all. We again, like I said earlier in this pod, we think of hope across the board as unequivocally one of the highest order virtues. However, there is an aspect of hope that is uh, future oriented, takes us from the present, and in a way can be a form of escapism, I think, when overdone. And to get a little Eastern as well, in the mindfulness tradition of the embrace of where the awareness of the present on purpose without judgment.
Hmm.
Hope implies that there is a judgment of the present as insufficient. And so, therefore, hope itself withdraws us from experience in the here and now. So,
I like
and
it. Well, I
potentially,
mean,
to Nietzsche's point, prolongs the suffering.
Well, to the point, I mean, by its definition that we mentioned before, there's a desire component to something. So if there's a desire for something, that means you don't have it. And, right there, that means you're not enough or you don't have enough. But let's just be on the optimistic side of it for a moment, hopeful for a brighter future, or hopeful for the country's heading in the right direction, hopeful that you will one day have that job. I believe, wasn't it Barack Obama's campaign was all around hope?
Hope,
Just the
hope and
idea of
change.
hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, without going into any of that stuff, I mean, it's a good slogan, right? And it's this
Yeah.
idea that it's a good thing to sell. And it's been around forever. And we've been talking about this. It was even the Roman philosophers saying that hope is a pillar that civilization is built on. And I told you that we talked about, I think, in the once, and people don't know this one because I like to nerd out about the Greek mythology. Pandora and Pandora's box. Well, I should take a step back for a second. Zeus is pissed off at Prometheus because he stole fire and gave it to humanity. And then, as punishment, Zeus devises a plan. And so he orders the gods to create the first woman named Pandora and endows her with all these gifts of beauty and charm and curiosity. And then Zeus gives Pandora a box. It's actually a jar, but technically we call it Pandora's box. And Pandora opens the box, and out comes all of these hardships like disease, suffering,
Mhm.
sorrow, death, and there was only one thing left in the box or in the jar. It was called Elpis, but we translate it to hope. And it's interesting. Is it like the final gift that was given to humanity, or maybe even to take your Nietzsche side of things a little bit? Is there actually is hope maybe a bad thing?
Well, that's it, is it was in the jar of hardships in the first place.
Mm,
And listen, man, our brand is hope, you know? I
I
have
know.
hope
Yeah, yeah.
tattooed on my wrist underneath my watch strap here. My daughter's middle name is Hope. I have a Banksy hanging in my office, the English artist Banksy. There is always hope. So, I'm clearly not an anti-hope guy, but the term amor fati, I think it comes from Stoic philosophy, the love of one's fate, where does hope deny love of one's fate? Again, going back to what I said a minute ago, where hope is a future oriented thought pattern, I guess, feeling, emotion, that is essentially denying the okayness of one's present state.
Hmm.
And if one is to love their fate, do we have to sort of just abandon hope? I don't know.
It's an interesting one because again, I'm with you. I love hope very much. It's a big part of who I am. And when you think about the song, "Que sera, sera," whatever will be, right? There is
Mhm.
something very almost Eastern about that of like, don't have desires and don't have attachments, and what will be, and what will come will come. You can't control the weather, but much like the person who wants their wedding day to have nice weather, you're like, I'm hoping that it's going to be nice weather. You're like, well, you have no agency on that whatsoever. So it's a wish. Which
Mhm.
is a little different than a hope. And again, we're trying to get into these distinctions because I don't think there is anything wrong with Rudy hoping to get into Notre Dame. I don't think
Right.
there is anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
And it was
You're
something
amazing
that,
with the movie references, bro. Every episode, you bring it.
yeah, well, I can't help myself. So
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. But I really do mean that too, is like for people to have something to look forward to have hope. I would never want to deny somebody of that hope. But what's so interesting is I actually, in preparation for this podcast, I had asked somebody in passing, is there something that you're hopeful for? Is something that you're looking forward to? And she said, oh, that's interesting. My boyfriend is moving to Florida, and I'm hopeful that things are going to work out okay between us because he had a work assignment. And I was like, whoa, that's a really interesting take on this.
Mm.
She said, I'm hopeful that I'll be okay either way. That's the thing that I have hope for is like, I really like him. I want us to work out, but my hope is I'll be okay either way.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a great take on it. Cause again, be hopeful for Rudy that he gets into Notre Dame, but also he should have been okay that if I don't achieve this desire, then everything will still be okay.
Right, right. And that's it, man, is and that's where I think we can really walk this line between healthy hope and unhealthy hope, where unhealthy hope is exclusively outcome oriented and healthy hope is the acknowledgement that I'm going to be okay either way and I have the agency to potentially to move towards the outcome. And once again, if I don't arrive in that place, it's going to be all right. And so that's again the fine line because here's the other question, Will. to what degree is hope an essential ingredient to resilience?
I think it definitely is a big component of it, right? Because if there's the three components, because now we're using components twice, but if there's the desire that you want something to happen, and then a pathway, and then you combine that with the agency or personal power, then yeah, that is a humongous component of resilience. Because the definition of resilience is essentially, I got knocked off the horse and I got back on, right? You get knocked down, 100 times, get up 101, right? And it's because you have this, and we've talked about this too. Faith and hope and faith certainly are cousins of some
Mhm.
sort. You have this hope or this faith that you still can prevail and
Mm,
it's still going to work out, or that I think that if I just try one more time, that I'll win this time. And it's like, wow, you've got high hopes. Yeah, I do.
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Hope and faith are cousins. So in I think it was First Corinthians, it might have been second. Either way, the Apostle Paul, he's in prison, he's in a Roman prison. He's writing letters to followers in Corinth to just inspire them, to encourage them, right? And so 13:13, so now there is faith, hope, and love that abide, but the greatest of these is love. And so I think that's really interesting. The greatest of these is love, as we're talking about faith and hope as cousins, because I think we can agree just throughout this discussion, like hope in an overdone way could become unhealthy. Faith in a blind way, I think, could be dangerous. And Christianity does not espouse blind faith. There's faith through evidence, and then there's also it transcends that to a degree. But then love, there's no amount of love that could be damaging, and so that's why I think the greatest of these things is love, and maybe the love of fate, amor fati, right? You can have hope, but love grounds you to where you're at, what you're doing, who's in front of you, the life you're leading, even if there is suffering, because hope, you know, our mantra, own your life, right? Hope, I think, is intricately involved in that as long as it's done in a healthy way. But love is the thing that bonds hope to reality. And I hope I'm sussing this idea out. I haven't had this thought before, the relationship between hope and ownership. But I think it's an important one. And I think it's an important one for our mission here. But that's such a truth. There's so much truth in that book, but that verse. So now faith, hope, and love abide, but the greatest of these is love. I think that's to have arrived at love as being sort of the focal point and the thing that makes hope go and makes hope healthy. Didn't expect that coming, Will.
No, I like it. Well, I should say I love it because I think even like, it's something that I even talk about with mental performance with athletes, and you have a young athlete in your life as well. Everybody hopes they're going to win the game. And you should want to win. Winning
Sure.
is more fun than losing. It just is, right? I
Right.
don't care what you tell me. But despite whether you win or lose, as long as you know that you're still loved and you can still love yourself,
Hmm.
then now you've built this hope on a healthy pillar where you're
Yes.
like, no, great, have aspirations, have desires, and also know that whether you get them or not, you're still loved.
Listen, man, food, water, shelter, and love. Humans need love the way we need food, water, and shelter. And so the fear of one's loss of love is maybe one of the most crippling, paralytic, terrifying versions of fear. And I think to tie it into perfectionism, there's sort of an all or nothing. Like I'm going to be worthy of love and acceptance, or I'm not. And that's what failure is. If I don't pass this test or succeed in this podcast or whatever it is, um, there's just no room for any version of loss.
I don't know why you just brought this up in my head. Is there's an old saying, the only thing worse than a has been is a never will be.
Mm,
And a lot of people don't pursue their goals and their dreams because of fear, and they don't want to get their hopes high. And it's a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism. I didn't want to get my hopes high. Well, why? Because I was most likely going to be disappointed, or I was most likely going to be fail, or I was going to actually not succeed at the thing. So the easier thing was to just actually not try, and to not actually have a dream, and to actually believe that there was a plan, because I do believe in the power of the environment. I do believe in the power of other people being around you. Like, you should do it. Yeah, you should. I did it.
Go for
You
it.
could do it too. Go for it. Like, yeah, dream big. Like, yeah, you should have high hopes.
Right.
Got to have high hopes for a living. You know what I mean? And it's because there's a part of it that's almost borderline delusional to become a professional athlete or to make it in music and things like that. There's a little bit of that beautiful delusion in you. But again, even if it means that you're not going to make it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have hopes. And if you can still remember that despite all of it, the love still exists, then you really can't fail.
Then you can't fail. Right. So, like I said before, hopelessness, I truly believe to be the saddest word in the English language. But hopelessness, I think, also discounts one's worthiness of receiving love. Because if I'm truly hopeless, that almost implies that I feel some absence of love or acceptance. Because again, the greatest of these is love. Love grounds me to what is, what will be, or what can be, right? And hopelessness is just forgetting that you are loved.
And look, you gave me a compliment about my movie quotes earlier, so maybe I gotta end it with another awesome one. Top 5 movie ever made, Shawshank Redemption, where the theme of the movie really is probably about hope. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, shame on you. But the main character is wrongfully convicted for decades of his life, and he just never loses hope. And the movie pretty much ends with a beautiful quote that just says, remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing dies.
The best of things. Good work, Will.
Good to see you today, buddy.
Good to see you, brother. Be well.
Take care. What's on Your Mind is a production of Oil Media. Subscribe for more reflections, blogs, and podcasts at oylmedia.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.